what a special guest we just had on, Charlotte. She is absolutely dynamic at what she does. And what's cool about that is that we had one of our guys here, Ryan, who said, hey, I know someone who you need to bring on the show, Charlotte. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started looking into her a little bit. And then I just mentioned her name to a few other people here in the fire industry here in North Idaho and in Eastern Washington. And everyone I talked to knew Charlotte. And just the way that she involves herself in the community, she's at all of the events. She's just thinking outside the box constantly. I'm just a truly dynamic personality. And to have her on the show was just a treat for everybody. So hopefully you enjoyed that. But a few takeaways I had from her, which was, there's a lot of times where we feel like that we have to, continue to grow and, move ourselves up into a different position, go to a different fire department or go to a different, if you're in the business world, a bigger, larger business. And okay, if I go somewhere else and I can really implement my ideas. What's so great about Charlotte's story is that even though she's in Eastern Idaho and she has, she's a volunteer fire department. She's a paid staff, one of the few paid staff members there, one of two, I think she said. But the fact that she's willing to still go so far and above and beyond at her job and take it with such passion, especially for the people in her area. I mean, being such a small fire district, she really could just sit back and take the job day by day, but she's continuing to grow herself, which is just making her community that much better. The investment she has into her community is bar none. So I was extremely empowered by her story. And also going down another road that I was just thinking about with her too, is that a lot of us want to be, and this is probably a better way to tie this in, a lot of us want to be, in that big pond, right? We want to be the big fish in the big pond. And a lot of us are small fish in small ponds maybe. But for Charlotte to say, you know what, I'm going to kind of stay in this small pond. I'm just going to grow and be a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger fish. And sometimes those bigger fish, we're like, okay, now we got to go to a bigger pond. And then we find ourselves kind of as the small fish again. But for herself, she said, you know what, this is a community. This is what I like. And I'm just going to continue to absolutely grow that. And that's a great analogy for even business owners or people looking to grow, which is, look, there's something to be said for being where you are and understanding and knowing that you've got this niche, you've got this group of people that you work really well with. There's too many stories I've heard about people feeling like, you know what, I feel like I got to make a change, I got to do something, and then the grass isn't always greener. So another huge dynamic that a lot of us can take away from what Charlotte was saying too is that think about how she got into the fire industry. She was in her 30s with kids, working a completely different job. And she took that literal confident risk and said, you know what, I'm not going to say she wasn't happy maybe with what she was doing, but she just saw an opportunity. And how many times have we ourselves seen opportunities or thought about opportunities that we wanted to do and maybe we don't do? Charlotte is the prime example of a person who said, you know what, I'm going to go do it. Yeah, she had to do it on the side at the beginning and work, a little bit extra time. And she was taking calls in the middle of the night with her kids at the time, working a totally separate job. I mean, for a person like that to have no excuses, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and realize, do I have an excuse to not move forward with what I want to do? Maybe it's a little bit of fear, maybe it's a little bit of something else, but she is the prime example of that, which is, you know what, I'm not going to let this deter me because I've got kids and I got a current job. I'm going to go forward with what I want to do. She had a little side hustle she did, and it worked out great. We have no excuses anymore. I was actually talking to a buddy about this over the weekend, which was we were sitting there. It was like, if you aren't doing something every month that's putting you out of your comfort zone, and he actually put it more like a yearly thing, that putting yourself yearly kind of out of your comfort zone. I think of it more as like a monthly thing. What am I doing each month to put myself out of the comfort zone? What am I doing that makes me uncomfortable? And then I lean into that. And I know I've talked about that a lot too in the past podcasts, but think about those things in your life right now that you've got that maybe you're kind of second guessing, or I don't really know if I want to do this. I don't know. It's going to add more pressure here. It's going to do this and that. 100% of the time, that's where opportunities come from. There's very seldom, I should say 99.9, because I'm sure somebody's watching and said, oh, there's been a time where it's happened to me. So 99.9% of the time, opportunities come from those things that make us uncomfortable. Those things that we think we don't know if we should really do. But until you lean into those things, it is very hard to be successful. So again, Charlotte, I really appreciate having you on the show. Listening to your story, listening to all the things that you're involved with is very humbling. because you do a lot right now for not only Eastern Idaho, but for this whole area that we live in Coeur d'Alene, Spokane, so on. So very, very, very appreciative for all the service that you have. So for everybody watching, make sure and stay tuned. Got another episode coming next week to you guys. But until next time, stay sharp, stay resilient.